of a faraway place and an evil old queen with the ugliest face. A tale of a baby with magical powers who threatens the queen in her ivory towers. Good versus evil, let battle be done. The Adventures of Willow, next Wednesday at 7 on BBC1.
There's something funny happening on BBC Radio 2. The Comedy Week begins on Saturday the 17th of September on BBC Radio 2.
Why are we always kept waiting? Charlie?
Saturday night at Holby City is a very busy night.
Do you understand what's going on here?
He's past us.
Got a rhythm on the monitor.
He's in EMD.
The real casualty would be to miss it.
Casualty returns Saturday 17th September on BBC1.
Now BBC One's Postmistress General Anne Robinson with more of your points of view.
Good evening, nice to be back. Views on the proms, Billy Connolly, bad language, the cricket, actually the bloody cricket, racism in the real McCoy, and much oohing and ahhing for Animal Hospital Live. Well, it couldn't fail, could it?
In my household, we've been crying throughout the whole week due to the suffering and cruelty to the animals, and particularly the moment when the dog was put down.
And?
I don't think it was a good idea to end the programme with the dead dog, as many children going to bed might have felt distressed.
And?
The programme was superb. It had me in tears, but it should have been pointed out that pets should not be kept in high-rise flats, thereby causing them to break their limbs by jumping out of windows. And why not counselling by the vet for the man who lost his dog?
For those who missed the chance of a good weep, this was a week in the life of an RSPCA hospital, shown in 10 live programmes and starring, apart from dead dogs, cats, snakes, minor birds, baby ducks and Rolf Harris. Points of View went along to see how a production of this sort came together. Foglia! A crew of more than 50 from the BBC Science and Features department met near Bedlam for the hospital. It was packed to the gills with television equipment. This was the filming of a delicate thyroid operation on Katie the cat, with the programme being directed from a van in the grounds.
It's actually a massive operation, just getting the technical side of it up and running, because we are transmitting from here live, which means we have to have all the cabling and everything else. So there are an awful lot of people who take part in these programmes who you never see on screen.
And Rolf Harris left the operating theatre to update and continue his mural.
The puppies are all doing very well, by the way. They've settled into their new homes, and Zach, the terrapin, is coming on fantastic.
How did the patients' owners like what they saw?
Watching it, I've got an awful lot of information, you know, about other pets.
I like all the different animals on it.
I like to watch it live because it's happening there and then.
I was watching it last night, and I see the last bit when the dog died, and I must admit I had tears in my eyes when I was watching it.
Here's another look at some of the stars. And an update from us. Katie, despite the cameras, is recovering well.
The cat came back. Thought he was a goner, but the cat came back. Just wouldn't stay away.
And in case Pamela Wright from Worcester and her family are still crying, here to cheer us up, heavily requested, a word or two from Frank Skinner on Gag Tag.
I was talking to this impressionist about that, you know, the famous Kenneth Williams, Oh Matron thing from, was it Carry On Doctor? It
would be one of the many Carry On Doctor movies.
And this impressionist said the way to do it exactly right is you should sound like a World War II aeroplane for the first 2 or 3 seconds before you say Oh Matron. So you're supposed to go, and I'm no expert, Matron.
Northern Ireland is dominating the news. Last Wednesday, when the IRA ceasefire was announced, there was an extended 9 o'clock bulletin. Jeff Hancock from Newbury objected.
I must protest in the strongest possible terms at the way the production team hijacked the schedules.
The 9 o'clock news flowed into the Dimbleby chat show. There was no choice but to stay with it. I had real reason to see the weather forecast. At 10 p.m. I gave up. The sheer arrogance in deciding what we wish to see.
Indeed, would it not have been logical and thoughtful to pop the weather, which many were waiting for, at its usual time before going on to the extended part of the programme? And objections also, though not, it has to be said, particularly well-argued ones, to the showing of the first in a new series of Screen 1. A Breed of Heroes starred the delicious Sam West and followed the mishaps of the none too experienced Charles Thorogood leading his platoon in Belfast, the year 1971.
Well, Charles, I am going to open fire if this doesn't stop. But there are houses at the end of the street, and I don't want half a dozen innocent corpses looking at me. Or in the news tomorrow. What I want you to do is keep these bloody cameramen out of the way. We're here to clear the Queen's highway of our enemies, and what I want you to do is to tell them that. So keep them well clear, but able to witness that I give orders to aim low for fear of innocent persons in houses. Got that? Yes, sir. And get that idiot down from there with his camera.
Several viewers felt as this one did.
The programme was insensitive and an insult to any serving officer or former serving officer, and it can do nothing to serve the peace process.
And Points of View this week has been to Exeter.
Exeter.
Exeter overlooks the River Exe. It's the second most haunted city in England.
Exeter has its own catacombs.
They filmed the Ident line here.
In London, at the Royal Albert Hall on Saturday, the last night of the proms will take place, the climax of a hugely successful 100th season. And in Exeter, at the Cathedral's Chapter House, we joined at rehearsals the brass section of the city's music group Symphony Orchestra and asked them what they thought of the BBC's proms coverage.
I enjoy watching a prom on BBC television very much because the BBC always produce their programmes extremely well.
I watched a fair amount of the proms, but I think it's on the wrong time of an evening. It's on at 10:30 and it's too late.
I enjoy watching the proms on television, but I sometimes feel that perhaps it's giving the wrong impression of what the whole promenade season is about, seeing small excerpts from concerts rather than getting the feeling of the full season.
I think the atmosphere, you do actually lose it if you watch it on television, unless you also have it on radio as well.
I don't like watching the proms on television, mainly because it tends to be fairly sterile in the way that it comes across. You get your shots of the conductor and a few shots of an instrumentalist playing, but it's fairly cliched in the way it comes across.
But trombonist Jackie Burden speaks for most of the rest of us.
The last half hour, which is the sea songs and everybody shouting, and it's great. The atmosphere is fantastic.
Now, a word about cricket.
Cricket, cricket, cricket. I am sick of bloody cricket.
Miss H. Collins believes that almost every time she switches on her television set, it is cricket. Specifically,
it's happened 3 times in the past week. If you must show cricket, pre-record it and show it after midnight.
This view is not expressed, but would be wholly endorsed, I know, by 249 motor racing fans. Actually, probably a lot more than 249, but that's the number who phoned to object to the NatWest Trophy being shown on Sunday Grandstand when motorcycling and motorsport had been promised. Mr. Stevens from Glasgow says he seriously wonders if
there's some sort of deviant strategy by programmers to boost their viewing figures by luring people who wouldn't otherwise be interested in your lacklustre sports package with tempting offers of motorbike racing throughout the afternoon, even though you're actually going to show cricket.
Grandstand says the new time for motorsport were clearly signposted, which is television language for they did announce them. Grandstand also says it felt it was more important to stick with cricket, presumably because if it hadn't, there would have been 2,049 calls of protest. How to cock up on television in style was demonstrated superbly by Floyd in the final programme of his series from Italy. In a restaurant in Trapani, not in the open air for a change, he attempted a classic Sicilian dish, fish baked in salt.
We're going to chip away and find our fish inside here. I know we are. Yes, excellent. Or not, as the case may be. Dennis, these things do happen in television programmes. I've ruined it. It's totally overcooked. And the fish is a complete disaster. And it just goes to show that being a smart-talking, smooth, international travelling cook can get you in serious trouble sometimes.
Rather refreshing, that. And Sarah Monk is very worried about my favourite cook.
What has happened to him? He seems to be fixated with pigs. I hope this is no reflection on his home life. Within the first 3 shows, he boiled a pig's head, cut up pig's trotters, and roasted an animal from ears to ribs. And another thing, he's using a hell of a lot of butter, more onions, some garlic, tomatoes, and of course parsley. When is this guy going to get original? Everything he cooks these days looks the same, red, winey, and sloppy. I'm not buying his book. I don't like the series. There's more to cooking than riding around Italy in a fancy car and yelling, "Turn my face" to the cameraman.
That was Sarah Monk of Lee, a Keith Floyd fan. The announcement that the BBC plans to televise the trial of O.J. Simpson has caused an angry response. Tim Steele, courtesy of email.
While this may be justified on the grounds of attracting reasonable ratings for a small outlay, it's hardly in the spirit of the BBC.